Hello, and welcome to Happy Selves and Souls. I'm Julie Powers, and I'm a licensed Zumba instructor, and I'm a partner with the Juice Plus company. And my mission is to help people understand that life is better when they're dancing through it, and I want to inspire healthy living around the world. But my expanded mission is to create better health at the cellular level and more joy at the cellular level. Because I believe that we get one body, and we're supposed to take care of it while we're in this body. And we're also supposed to be happy and joyful while we're here on this planet. And we're supposed to spread that joy to other people. And so that brings us to these conversations that I like to have. And I want to just share them with you out there who happens to be watching. So today, I am really excited to have this conversation with somebody who I just met, not too long ago, really. I've known her, but the thing is, we all come from different walks of life. We come from different political, cultural, religious backgrounds. We come from all different whatevers. These days, you never know what you're going to get into, right? But my feeling is that we can learn from everybody. Everybody has a story to share, and everybody has something valuable. And this woman has something extremely valuable right now, because Theresa King is not only a neighbor of mine. She recently moved into my neighborhood, and literally I could go out my front door, and if I had a really good arm on me, I could throw a football into her window. But I would get it about halfway through the street, and it would crash into the middle of the street. So Theresa and her husband, Chad, have two darling little kids that I see playing in the yard. And let's see, it's Brady, who's 10, and Brooklyn, who's 9. And you have been homeschooling these kids for several years before everyone and their brother and sister around the world had to start homeschooling, maybe against their wishes. So with COVID comes change. And you are, I feel like, one of the ultimate know-it-all people. And I don't mean that in a smarty pants kind of way. I mean, you have real experience. And there are lots of misconceptions about homeschooling. And a lot of people were doing it a long time ago, but it wasn't a big thing. And now it's a big thing. And there's a lot of people that are confused as to how to do it best. So, you know what? Let's just have a little chat.
Wonderful.
Tell me, Theresa King, and I'm so glad that I'm not in this position where I have to even worry about it right now, but I feel for everybody.
So do I.
Tell us about your experience with homeschool, and why you decided to start that for your family, how it's going, and then what you would recommend for people who either were planning to do this at some point or were not.
Okay. Well, I'm super excited to be here. I think this is awesome what you're doing. So how did I get to be a homeschooler? I don't really know. It is, it's just something that I always felt like, and Chad and I have always talked about, was we just kind of knew this was our path. Along with that came a lot of fear, a whole lot of fear. A lot of that, even for me, knowing this is what I was supposed to do, felt very uncomfortable. It felt very unknown. I felt very much like I was going against the grain on this huge level. But I always just kind of knew this is what we were going to do. Big part of it is thanks to postpartum hormones. I remember when Brady was first born. At that time, I was a director of an early childhood center in South County, St. Louis. And with that early childhood center was also a daycare. So I was fortunate enough that when I went back to work at that point, Brady was going to go with me. But I remember this moment during my maternity leave, just in tears, that someone else was going to get those 8 hours a day with him. Somebody else was going to care for him. Someone else was going to make those decisions. And it broke my heart. However, just because of the circumstances we were in, I did go back to work. He did go to work with me. So it was wonderful that all I had to do was walk down the hall.
That's ideal. That's an ideal situation.
It was wonderful. And then Miss Brooklyn came 14 months later. So I was in the same situation again. But I was just through the story of our life, we ended up back here in Farmington. I've been home with them since Brooklyn was about 11 months old. And the older they got, I was a teacher. I have an education background. And so that's just kind of always in you, like that just doesn't go away. So as they started to grow, I found myself just naturally educating them. I wanted to do ABCs and colors and all of that. And the more I got into it, the more I felt a little bit more confident in my ability to homeschool them. Because especially as a teacher, I felt like I was going against the system that I had grown up with and always
Right.
kind of felt
You studied to provide that for other children, and all of a sudden you're like, nope, that's not for me.
Exactly.
I get
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
But as mom, I knew what I was supposed to do. So it's just, evolves. It has definitely been an evolution process of how did we get where we are right now. And homeschooling is a wild ride. Like, it is a day-to-day just adjustment of your home life, your marriage, your parenting skills, and educationally, what are my goals for my kiddos, right? So you also have to put that hat on. And so, yeah, here we are. We are in, that's like the best question ever is what grade are they in, right? Because for homeschoolers, we might be in 5th grade in science, but 3rd grade in spelling, or, we just get to kind of be flexible. So I've always homeschooled.
I think that's ideal for children to be able to learn at their level.
Yeah.
And that's one of the really big benefits of homeschooling is when you have a child who, from my perspective, which is, I don't know anything about homeschooling, but my niece is basically homeschooled and she lives on a sailboat. But she's able to go at her level, which is pretty advanced, and she's very comfortable with that. And other kids might, like you said, be really advanced in one subject, but not in another. And how perfect is that?
Right. It's
tailor.
It's really wonderful. And that I have 2 kiddos. Lots of homeschool families have more than 2 kiddos. So you get into this whole plethora of personalities and learning styles and just the fun challenge, if you will, of trying to figure out how to be that one person for all of those different aspects.
Right.
I'll say, you talked about misconceptions. What is, I think the biggest thing people who are kind of investigating it is that it is, first of all, it's legal in all 50 states. Some people think that it's not. And every state has a different set of laws. So the Missouri laws for homeschooling is going to be different than any other state. And what we are required to do differs from state to state. So, my advice for anyone looking into it is definitely, first of all, learn your laws, what is required of you. And I think the second thing I always advise people is just to take a deep breath, because it is a completely different wheel to your, relationship with your kiddos and how you run your house and all of that.
Right. So here is something that I have been thinking about so you have all these parents that maybe they are now having to work from home full time because their offices and businesses are on that work from home schedule. And they have these kids that they're homeschooling. Whereas normally, if you're choosing to homeschool, one of the parents has taken it upon him or herself to be the homeschool parent and become the teacher full time for those kids, not working as an employee for someone else or whatever. So is there anything that you can sort of help give some advice for those parents that, because, like right now, some students are full-time in school, some are in a hybrid situation, and some are homeschooling full-time, virtually. So yeah, any advice for that?
Yeah. It is so, you're right. There's so many different scenarios. The glory and the beautiful part of homeschooling is that it is completely flexible. Like, as a homeschooler, we don't do school from 8 to 3, Monday through Friday. In Missouri, like, we're required to do a certain number of hours within a year. So we could do those hours when and however we choose to for our individual homeschools. So if you perhaps are working a full-time job and you're not off, if you will, until 2 or 3 or 4 in the afternoon, you can make that 4 in the afternoon your interactive schooling time with your kiddos.
Ah,
That's an option. You know, we have lots of families that you realize that your kiddos are just not morning people, and so you're better in the afternoon. Weekends are totally doable. I know that's kind of, everything is unconventional right now, but
right.
there is nothing stating that you have to do homeschool Monday through Friday, 8 to 3, like a traditional school does. So utilizing those other hours of the day and really being creative, you can lean on family members if you have family members. If grandma and grandpa or an aunt and uncle were to keep them for a few hours, like, they can essentially be your substitute teachers. Like, if you could do an arrangement like that. So
Right.
yeah, being creative with your time and asking for help where you may have some support will be a huge benefit.
So I want to make sure that I clarify this, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of parents that, I mean, their kids are still through the public school system. And so when I was saying that they're homeschooling, they're actually just doing
Virtually.
school from home through the public school system. But to have a homeschool curriculum, you actually purchase a curriculum, and there are so many different options now for people to, get something that makes sense for their families, right? So
Right.
I know that many, many years ago, my brother and sister-in-law homeschooled their children, and it was way back before it was the norm at
Right.
all. And so it was really unusual, and they had to do everything themselves. Whereas my niece, again, she does a lot of things online that are, it's almost like she's going to college courses online, and she has an option sometimes to watch a live lecture or a recorded lecture. And so it's totally different now. And I think there's everything in between, right?
Yes, there is absolutely everything in between. You can purchase a boxed curriculum, much like a public school would use. That's got workbooks and textbooks and everything like that. You can create your own. If you were to go to the library and gather materials and just really kind of devise your own lessons, you can do that. All the way to the gift of YouTube. Like, we turn to YouTube for science experiments and things like that are not my personal strong suit. And you're right, there is just absolutely everything under the sun as an option.
Right.
And it has changed so much. I remember me growing up, I just turned 40. So, like, growing up, the homeschoolers were the weird kids, like, it's so common. It's just kind of a common school choice at this point. And
Right.
yeah.
So, again, way back when, the homeschooler kids used to be a little bit socially awkward and ill-prepared for socializing outside of the home, because there weren't networks of homeschoolers all being put together. Then it sort of advanced into, maybe 10 to 15 years ago, where there were more networks and there were homeschool sporting activities and teams and choir and band and, PE kind of things. And now there's like full networks. So you guys have a network here in the mineral area of Missouri. And can you tell us about that and how that works for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have what we call a cooperative. And once a week, at this point, it's once a week, we get together. And what we do is we do the fun stuff. That's what I like to call it. So that's where we put together PE classes and art and some of those bigger group activities that you can't really do at home with 2 or 3 kiddos of varying ages. So it gives that outlet for our kiddos, but it also provides that support network for parents, because we find that we want to go to co-op as badly as our kids do, because that's where we can go, okay, I'm dealing with this. How are you doing? And how did you handle this when you dealt with it? So it's just, you're right. I always kind of giggle. I'm like, we aren't sitting around in our denim, reading the Bible all day long. That might be part of our curriculum, but that is no longer who we are. So there are, yes, athletic departments. There are, local support groups that get together. We have here in the mineral area, before COVID, shut us down like it did everybody else. We were running about 130 kids every Friday. We were right on the brink of about 100 families. Now with COVID, we've seen this influx. So when we get back in person together, like it's going to be interesting to see what our community looks like then.
Right.
Yeah, so it's wonderful. It pops up everywhere, and with social media and the internet, like it's so easy to find people to provide that support that people really, really need right now.
Well, I would say that one misconception that I know a lot of people have is that if you homeschool, you must be a very strict religious person. But that is not the case at all. There are people from all walks of life and all religious beliefs or non-beliefs
Right.
that homeschool. And I just think that it's so I don't know. It's just so flexible,
Yeah.
that it's a really great option. And I know that there are parents now. I think that the public school does an amazing job, and I would not want to be working for a school district right now in these times because it's so up in the air and it's changing all the time, and it's kind of nerve wracking.
Right.
Um, so I know that there are parents that are weighing the option of, do we continue with public school, or
Mhm.
do we bite that bullet and go with a whole homeschool curriculum? And so
Mhm.
in our last couple of minutes here, we have about 2 to 3 minutes. Is there something that you would recommend? Is there like a questionnaire or something that somebody could, you know what I mean, like questions to ask themselves
Sure.
to know, is it best to stick with somebody else planning everything and you just go
Mhm.
through the hoops of what the public school system says, or if maybe homeschooling is best? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know either. And like you said, I am a full supporter of public school because I was a public school teacher, I was a public school student. For me, this was just right for our family. And I think a lot of people feel that, but then fear stops them from, kind of stepping out. Right now, making that decision, I think it's important to know that even if you pull your kiddo out now, typically for 8th grade and lower, going back into the public school system is not usually that big of a deal. Okay. Once you get to high school, it's kind of a different story because you're dealing with transcripts and high school diplomas. But anybody under 8th grade, if you decide to pull them out for this semester, for this school year, going back is not going to be, typically has not been that big of a hurdle or anything like that. So know that there is hope in that if this is right for you now, that doesn't mean you are committing to doing it forever.
Right.
um, and that's what, ask questions of reputable sources. States have so many different organizations that help organize and educate families. Find those organizations for your state. I am a representative for Families for Home Education here in Missouri, and we are that state organization that helps families understand what they need to do and understand the law. So, ask questions of the right people and get to know your law, and just realize that if it's what you need to do now, it doesn't mean you have to do it forever.
Right. Well, I think that's great. And so I'm sure that there will be someone out of the 5 or 10 people that watch this video that will have a question for you directly. And so
Sure.
in order for them to reach out to you directly, I will post your contact information in the description of this video, so they can get to it there.
Wonderful.
But if there's any one last piece of advice that you might have, what would that be?
Hmm. You just push through the fear. Like, it is so rewarding on the other side. And if right now you're in this season that your virtual situation is not working for you and it's causing more chaos or more trouble and turmoil in your home, just be brave, even if it's for a semester, just to see, so that you and your family can be successful in this really, really weird time.
Right. Well, I noticed that our sound, the audio on my end keeps fading in and out. So I hope that it works well enough that people are able to hear what you have to say, because everything that you've said is extremely valuable. And I just hope that it helps somebody make the decision one way or the other that's
Me
best
too.
for that family. So
Me
thank
too.
you so much, Teresa.
You're
I really
you're welcome.
appreciate this.
Thanks. Me too. I really appreciate it also.
All right, thanks.